I was thinking about before you guys came down here. In most cases, when guys get together and talk about their high school glory days, a whole lot of lying goes on. One touchdown becomes 2 or 3. I was going to say 50 yards becomes a 100-yard game. Assisted tackle becomes a sack that won the game. With you guys, that's not the case. You guys wouldn't be here if pretty much. I mean, and when you guys tell people what you did, it's hard to believe some of the things you guys accomplished. But bottom line is, you wouldn't be here if the things you've said that you say about yourself were true, because we appointed a pretty good committee, I think, of 23, 24 people, going back all the way back to the 40s, and put a lot of time into selecting the Nashville's 50 greatest football players of all time. I caught some slack over it and was told I should have done 100, but I really wanted it to be an exclusive list. So I stuck with 50, and then we'll also name the next 50, so we will have 100 people listed. We go all the way back to 1931. Baby Ray from Central, 6'6", 260 pounds. Imagine that in 1930. They did, back then they didn't. So, with that said, let's start off with some of your most memorable games and greatest accomplishments, and let's start with Walter since he's next to me.
Okay. Mike, thank you for having me here. My best, the most important football game that I played in was the 1969 Clinic Bowl, where we played Maplewood. Both teams were, we had lost one game. I don't think Maplewood had lost, but we were beaten by Memphis Southside team, our first game of the year. Then everybody else we blew out. We finally beat NBA after all those years that they ran up the score on us.
Engel was not a part of that.
No, he wasn't. I don't know if he was born yet.
No.
but yeah, Coach had he had told us that we're not going to run up the score. We're going to, be gentlemen about it. But anyway, the Clinic Bowl in 1969 was the first time that a predominantly black high school had played in that prestigious bowl game. They had a great quarterback, Jeff Woodcock. He and I were co-most valuable players that year. The score was 0-0. We played in ice and snow at Vanderbilt Stadium. Luckily, I had hurt my ankle the last game of the season, and so I wasn't supposed to play, but somehow they taped me up, had nice drugs, and so the outcome of it was that I was able to scramble, and I got down inside the 10-yard line, and we were trying to score. Fourth down, I ran a little option play and cut inside and scored, and so we managed to hold on, and we won that game 6-0.
I know you won 6-0. How much time was left when you scored?
It was about 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, so they got the ball again, and the defense held.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me apologize. I should have introduced. I'll introduce each one of you as we go. Walter Overton, legendary player from Pearl, great quarterback, became the first African American quarterback to sign with Vanderbilt. Played with Vanderbilt at quarterback as a freshman, then moved to wide receiver and had a prolific career at Vanderbilt. So with Fred, with Mike, I'll start with Mike. Mike, some consider the greatest football player, hands down, to ever play in Nashville. I've heard that from Boots Donnelly, all the Lynch brothers, a lot of people. Of course, they're all Ryan people, so you got to take that into consideration.
All Catholics.
All Catholics, all Ryan people. Mike Murphy probably even says that. But Mike was a fantastic player who had a great career as a quarterback at Father Ryan, went on to play at Vanderbilt as a 3-year starter. Freshman didn't play there?
Yeah, I played as a freshman.
Okay, it's okay. A 4-year starter at Vanderbilt. So,
does he remember the Florida game down in Florida?
I remember remember that's my first one started.
Yeah, right.
Really?
Everybody remembers those. Those are not the good ones. So, I'm like Walter. Mike, thanks for having us here and doing this. Mine's a little bit similar to Walter. Was the Clinic Bowl. I think was the most memorable game I think I had. We had an opportunity to go a clean slate, not lose a game my senior year, 75, and we played Maplewood, which a lot of people say, I'm not embellishing this or carrying it any other way, but it was a 3 overtime game, and we actually won on something that I kind of fumbled a little bit. Boots says I didn't, but I kind of did. It was an extra point, and we got it and made 2, and then they didn't make the 2, and but it was probably one of the. It was such a game that went back and forth. They had a lot of talent on that team. A lot of guys that played D1. A lot of guys were going to Vanderbilt with me, but we played at Vanderbilt just like Walters, and the fans were coming from Maplewood, from everywhere, and with Father Ryan too as well. Had a great crowd, but very memorable. I mean, that Clinic Bowl back then was played here, unlike how it is now, and I think it was really a good venue back then, because I knew, like when Walter, the Clinic Bowl was something everybody was trying to get to, and that was what you were trying to achieve every year.
Before we go on, crowds for your 2 games, 25, 30,000?
Every bit of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
my senior year, actually, my junior year, we played at the old Westfield, if everybody remembers, and then we had so many crowds. The team was that good, and people we were playing, we played everybody. It didn't matter who you were. You know, we played it, unlike now, we've got so many different divisions, but we moved my senior year and started playing at Vanderbilt, and we just, I mean, it's like you said, the Catholics, they followed it.
Ingle Martin, the baby of the crowd, still very relevant in football around these parts. Coach at Christ Presbyterian Academy, which will be in the playoffs this Friday, and Ingle was a prolific athlete at NBA, and I say athlete because he's known as a quarterback by a lot of people, but also was a great punter, great kicker, defensive back.
A little defensive back.
Okay.
He didn't want to tackle anybody.
But
he didn't want to tackle.
Didn't want to hit anybody. I knew he was a punter, though, and a kicker, because I was covering Vanderbilt at the time, and Woody Woodenhofer thought that he would be able to lure Ingle away from the bigger schools, including Florida, where he ended up signing with, by telling his mama that he would allow him to punt and kick and do anything else he wanted to do, basically, if he would come. But Ingle went on to Florida and then transferred after your freshman year or sophomore?
I spent 3 years at Florida,
okay,
and then ended up at Furman for my last 2.
And in those 2 years became the greatest passer in Furman history. Went on to play in the NFL, played for the Titans. So with that, what was your greatest game? And I know you had some great ones.
Yeah, Mike, thanks again. Just echoing what the other guys have said. It's a great honor for all of us, and I think we all will admit that we were on some really good teams. That's why we were able to get this. 3 of us are quarterbacks, which however you want to write it, that's who usually gets a lot of the credit, unless you're really good and you're a tailback over here like Joe. Right. But no, we had a lot of games. I think probably my junior year, 1999, a team from Florida, the Bowl School, came up and played us. They had won a state championship in Florida the year before. They had what would end up being 26 Division I players in their junior and senior class.
So they had non-star.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Florida.
I remember, I coached Greenball. A guy went to that school.
So they had non-starters that got Division I.
That's right. They,
Wow.
the story goes. My college roommate at Florida was on that team. Just small world type stuff.
Wow.
But we get there. My buddy who played at Bowles, the backstory is they walked around and toured Vanderbilt all day in the hot sun. He said they were tired. Whatever the excuse was, that's right. We had a great senior class that year. Guys who were just football players. Not a whole lot of Division I guys, but guys that knew how to play the game. It actually had 3 guys sign with Yale out of that class, which is crazy. But a lot of really good players, and it came down to the end. We had been ahead. They battled back and went up, and we're driving to go score. And back then, nobody ran a hurry up or a no huddle or anything like that. And we called timeout, or they called timeout. And Coach Bowers, Ricky Bowers, my high school coach, called 2 plays back to back. And he said, the first play we're going to run what was our G play, hand it to the fullback, and the second play we're going to run the GQ, where I fake it and follow the fullback through. And you know how it goes. You ran the first one, we got right on the ball. Ran the second one, and it just opened up. You know, I think my mom could have scored. Anybody could have scored, but it opened up, and I went in and scored, and you know, we ended up winning. I think there was 17, 18, 19 seconds left. We go on, and a lot of people will debate that was the best NBA team that there was, and you know, you know, the championship was 49-7 or something that year, and so we definitely had a great team, but that was for sure one of the best games that I was a part of.
You say anybody could have run it in. Could Mike have run it in?
Mike probably would have ran it in and got 10 points.
They have a lot of good back and forth, Mike and Engel do, because Mike is Engel's father-in-law, and it's pretty good banter. And they probably have a pretty interesting Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. Well, not only that, but another son-in-law is Matt Freege. If you remember Matt Freege, great Vanderbilt basketball player. So,
hey, Mike, let me say this about this young guy right here. I started refereeing right about the mid-'90s, and I happened to have had their game, NBA's game, and I had not seen a better quarterback than this guy right here.
Wow.
Hello.
Hello,
I'm here. I'm here.
Hey, that's your son-in-law. Okay. I begged him to come to Vanderbilt.
Did you really?
No, I begged him because I said, you'll be a star, absolute star, man.
How tough was that to turn Vanderbilt down? I mean,
well, for me, you know, both my parents went to UT. I had a sister at UT. Grew up a UT fan. You know, Peyton Manning posters on my wall. No. You know, my junior year, Vanderbilt was the first school that offered me, and you know, for me, I had to at that point kind of disassociate any fan, you know, allegiance that I had, and you know, I went and talked to Coach Woodenhofer. It just there was a stark difference between Vanderbilt and all the other SEC schools, just from a commitment from the administration. But there's no difference now. I was thinking about it earlier. What Coach Mason is doing with and they've got great facilities now, but it's nowhere near what Tennessee has, and those guys know how to coach. They know how to find their kind of guy, and the fact that they're winning 6 or 7 games is amazing, considering all of the things that they're up against. And as a coach, I appreciate it a lot more than I did as a recruited athlete. But golly, to win 6 or 7 at Vanderbilt now, against everything they're competing against, Coach Mason deserves a raise, and probably the administration needs to understand what they've got.
Definitely. And now we go to one of my favorite guys, Joe Campbell. We've become good friends. Covered him in high school, and then I was elevated at the Tennessean to cover colleges, and got the MTSU beat. So lo and behold, Joe was a freshman at MTSU, so I covered Joe about 7 years. And what a phenomenal athlete. And when I called Joe to tell him that he was on this list, and by the way, these 4 guys, when we started out, then these were what we call, to borrow a basketball frame, these were slam dunk guys that we knew were going to be on it. So there was no question about that. But when I called Joe to let him know that he had made it, great suspense moment, I said, and you only missed to being unanimous by 1 vote. And this goes back to Boots Dolly, we've been talking about. And I said, who you think the 1 vote that didn't vote for you was? He goes, who? And I said, Boots Dolly. And I knew it. He knew I was soft. Now, let me cut Boots some slack. I was just kidding with Joe because I have that relationship with him, and I can't remember who didn't vote for you, but I'll find out so you can get on to him. But anyway, Joe Campbell became broke the Metro rushing record, which was very impressive. Went for over 4,000 yards in his career at Stratford. Then went on to MTSU, where he broke the MTSU rushing record with over 2,600 yards there. And had some incredible games where he piled up a lot of running yards. And one of the guys on the committee put on his vote, as good as Joe was as a running back, he was a better defensive back.
Wow.
So, and he was at Stratford at the time. He wasn't on the staff. He was on. Don Harris was on the staff. So he said he was a better.
Wow.
And some would say he was a better basketball player than football player. But anyways, with that, Joe Campbell, your fondest memories.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I think you shorted me on my yardage in middle. I think I got to go 3,000 something.
Maybe I was saying one season.
Yeah,
Okay.
But yeah, just great to be here with all these guys, man. And I was kind of shocked that when I got the notice, I felt like I won the Heisman or something. I mean, I was really tickled, as I imagine the rest of you guys were. Cause,
Right.
you know, you something like this, you're always competing, whether it's kind of silently or
Yeah.
you know, you find that you made it. At first, you're like, I don't care about that. And then when you made it, you're like, yeah. So I had a big yeah moment when you called me. But you know, I don't have any Clinic Bowl stories like these guys do. We didn't make it. But I think my most memorable, and I've had a few, but one of the most memorable, and I should say satisfying games was, fortunately or unfortunately, against the NBA. They had beat us my junior year, pouring down rain. The field was like a duck pond. And I remember I had 188 yards and never scored a touchdown.
I remember that.
Ran all up and down the field, never could get in. Last minute, I won't call his name. Reggie, I won't call his last name. Reggie. He missed a wide open pass. Corey Fleming threw it to him in the end zone, and he slid, and the ball just slid right out. And we're just, oh man, all the air went out of ourselves, and it was just depressing. So we had to endure that the whole year. So my senior year comes, and lo and behold, we get NBA in I think the first round of the playoffs again. And that was happened to be the game that I actually broke the record. And then I got the 99-yard touchdown run at the end, and I'll never forget that game because they punted and the ball rolled out at the 1. And so we're trotting out onto the field, and this one drunk guy was on the back of the gate, and he's like, "Take it 100 yards, Joe." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." So they called the isolation play, and I mean, that thing opened up, and I was like, "Oh, my God," and just hit it, and I never forget. I just was running, and I kept thinking I was feeling somebody on my back, and I was nervous. And so to get that in and get that victory and break the record all in that one night was just truly amazing, and I'll never forget that game.
When you crossed the goal line, did it ring true? Did you remember that you didn't score the year before?
Oh, I was remembering I didn't score the year before all night long. Yeah, it was just so frustrating because they, you know, I mean, they were a solid, well-coached team, and we went back and forth, and to go and you know, I was a kind of a quick cut guy, and to not be able to get your feet under you the entire night, and it was just very frustrating. And so that night, man, it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders, and not to mention you break the Metro rushing record, which was truly great. So yeah, it was a good time.
Ingo, can you remember? I'm the only one who didn't talk about NBA too. Both of these guys did. I didn't say a word.
Well,
you're in the family, so we just keep it good, okay?
I've got a feeling you've talked about NBA.
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah, I know you have.
We talked about their decisions to go to college. Joe was heavily recruited, and Tennessee wanted Joe very badly. Who would that have been? Would that have been
Johnny Majors?
Johnny Majors wanted Joe, but wanted him as a defensive back.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, a lot of people thought Joe was Joe definitely was a great defensive back, but Joe wanted to be a running back.
Don't blame him.
And that's why MTS tell that story.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. Most of the bigger 1A schools, Kentucky, well, not Kentucky, they were going to let me play running back, but Vanderbilt, Florida State, different schools had were mentioned heavy on defensive back. Coach Steele, I think, was defensive coordinator at UT, and he told me, he said, "Son, I have you in the NFL in 3 years if you come play corner." And I played corner at Stratford. We didn't have a lot of numbers. I played safety at Stratford. I enjoyed playing defensive back, but my heart, I played football because I liked running the ball. And I just told Coach Leach, I guess, I don't know if it was arrogance or stupidity, East Nashville or what, but I told Coach Leach at one time, I said, if any school calls and they're talking about playing corner, tell them I'm just not interested. I'm not coming. And I meant that, because if I had to strictly play cornerback in college, I would have chosen basketball. I meant it, that much. So Coach Donnelly comes in the only way he can. I never forget, we were sitting around in one of my basketball games. I think we were playing Hillsboro's. I think Mississippi State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee State, and I think Memphis was there. All of them sitting around my father. And so Coach Donnelly's just sitting there. He's just anti-so. He's not really. And so he's just telling the guys, he said, I don't know why y'all made the trip. Campbell's coming in the middle. But he knew, I think through the community and everything, he knew how much I wanted to play tailback. So I think he knew he had a leg up on everybody else. So
wow.
That's why I chose middle.
And he never backed off that. And, of course, you had a phenomenal career and proved everybody else wrong.
Yeah, no, he never backed off. And at the midnight hour, UT, Coach Matthews said, well, son, we'll let you play tailback. But, I've always been kind of a jerk as a kid. And I just knew, I said, because I asked my dad. I would ask my dad what he thought. Every time we go on a visit, he said, son, I'm not touching this one. He said, if you screw it up, you'll only have yourself to blame. I don't want you to come back.
And that's true.
Yeah.
To this day, it's still that way.
Right. And he said, wherever you decide to go, I'm back. I'm with you 100%. And so when UT said they let me run the ball, I just kind of figured, I said, man, they'll probably stick me up there with the third string line. Let me get 3 attempts for minus 10 yards and say, hey, son, didn't work out.
Right.
Go play cornerback.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I just took Booth's word, because he has that effect on. I knew he was telling me the truth, and I just went with it.
Good for you.
And Boots is on the selection committee, and really, really, let me tell you guys, put a lot of work into this. I heard from Boots, probably Boots and Ronnie Carter, former TSSAA executive director. I heard from them throughout this selection committee more than anybody else. Really, really conscientious about their selections. You guys played further enough back, even Ingle, to when high school football was really big. For Mike and Walter, it was it.
Yeah.
I don't even think we had sounds. No, we didn't have sounds.
No, because when I got to Vanderbilt, when Smitto left, the game
That's right.
to do the sounds.
So, talk about how big high school football was back then compared to where it is today.
It's when I came in, integration had started, 64, 65, somewhere like that. Because Pearl had that great, outstanding basketball team with Perry Wallace and Hal McClain and Fisher and Douglas. They were, unbeatable.
Yeah.
And so that's when the NIL integrated, and then you got a sense of competition, where you were at one time. Pearl was a predominantly black school that played black teams, and the NIL played all white teams.
Yep.
And when that began to know, then you could really understand and appreciate the caliber of talent that was in the city.
So high school football was already big before that happened, and when that happened, that took it to another level.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And from where it stands today is when I came through in the 70s, it's just watered down now. There wasn't that many schools when I came through.
Right.
I mean, all of us can kind of talk about that a little bit, but there's so many schools and so many divisions and so many of this and so many of that. I mean, we played anybody that wanted to play, and everybody would play us. It's not like that anymore. It's all changed, and the whole scope of that's changed with so many different teams. So many kids are playing too as well, but it's just watered down a lot now.
Joe is very active in Stratford, member of the president of Boosters Club, or you were, and has gotten back involved when Maurice Fitzgerald went back over there. You want to get it back.
Yeah, and I do, but I think it's so hard, Mike, because back when we all played, I know when I played, you had a sense of community.
Yeah.
You pretty much went to the school that you were zoned to go to.
Yep.
So the community took a whole lot of pride in your success, and so when you won, your community won. And nowadays, these kids are doing the LeBron James thing. They're hand picking. Okay, these guys are good. I want to go play there, and this and that. And and I was just telling before we got on, I was saying, I had an offer to go to Brentwood Academy, Gallatin, and that was absurd to me. I played ball with these guys from 5 years old. I'm gonna finish it out with my friends in the neighborhood. And so I just think it was, more of a sense of pride for the community and the athletes as well. And then it was true. I don't know. It was a true, like, wars. I mean, us against Maplewood, 2 East Nashville schools. Guy lives across the tracks, and you're talking smack all year. And then you had to put up a show up. So it was just a little bit more of a sense of pride in the community. And I think it was a lot more important to the athletes to show up, to come and show up for his side of town.
You grew up in, like I did, over in Shelby Park. You played with some of those guys in youth football.
Right.
Then they went,
And they
when you get to
split.
junior high, they went
Right.
out. Then you going up against them again
And
in
so
high school.
You
knew
grew
all
up
these
playing
guys.
with those guys. You knew them, and I mean, it was just for bragging rights, And even the Whites Creek guy, I mean, it was huge. You know, those rivalries were huge. I don't know the scope of it today with all this, but it certainly doesn't seem. I can look in the sands and it doesn't seem like it.
Oh yeah, it's no community,
Right.
especially in the metro type schools.
Right.
You know, the private schools they're up above it a little bit more with the people that come out and watch those. But you know, that side's changed, and so has the athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at us here, all four of us.
Right.
I played every sport.
Oh yeah.
I went from.
So did I.
Yeah.
I went.
So did I.
I mean, we all
Yeah.
did. I mean, I went from football, had one day off. Went to basketball, had one day off, and then
Yeah.
went to baseball.
Right.
So I mean, that's all changed now. A lot of these guys are saying,
Specialized.
their coaches are saying, hey, just play this one sport. We'll get you here. We'll get you there with AAU and all
Right.
the things that do it. So that part of it's changed too.
Yeah, that's big.
We talk about growing up, and when you're growing up, you have idols that you guys had. Your idols were high school players.
Okay.
I mean, everybody now, and you kept up with pro guys, but you go talk about maybe somebody that you idolized that was a high school football player when you were in junior high or even elementary school.
Don't say me. Okay.
Yeah. Being born in 1982, I never got to watch Mike Wright.
You just heard the stories.
That's right. I just heard the stories, and we've actually scrounged up a couple old DVDs that people have put the film on too. So I've gotten to watch him, and like you said about the guy from 1930, he was a 6'4" quarterback that weighed 200 and something pounds in the 70s, which that's huge for now.
It's just not fair.
No, and being able to run a 4.5 at that size is not fair. You know, I think the guy that stands out, and he's another multi-sport guy, but R.A. Dickey. You know,
I was kind of hoping you'd say R.A.
Yeah, R.A. played. I think he finished in '93 at NBA, and so coming up, I would go to some of those games as a boy, and you know, watching him and the way that he played, and I couldn't tell you one thing about a score. I couldn't tell you if they won or lost, but the way that he played the game and how hard he played, and then you'd go watch him and he played basketball, and then he'd, like Mike said, spend a day off and then go play baseball, and those are the guys that you looked up to for sure for me.
Walter, who'd you look up to?
You know, Howard Gentry and I, we grew up in the same neighborhood. Howard Gentry, whose father was a head football coach at Tennessee State, and now the gymnasium is named after him, Gentry Center. And so I would go with him to Tennessee State games, and the person that I looked up to was a quarterback by the name of Eldridge Dickey.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable. He was ambidextrous, could throw with the left hand or right hand. Ran a 4.4, 4.5 40. Was just completely unbelievable. I was magnetized by how great this guy was, and how phenomenal, and how such a tremendous talent. And I was lucky because I lived on 23rd in Charlotte. I grew up right next to Centennial Park. His girlfriend lived close by on the street next to me. So every Sunday he would come over to his girlfriend's house, and they would walk in the park, and I would stand at my kitchen window with a football so I could go out and throw with him. And sometimes he would, would oblige and catch with me. Sometimes he wanted to be with his girlfriend. Yeah. But I'd still hold my ball and wait for him to come play with me.
Great story. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Mike, was there anybody great before you, or were you
Yeah.
the first great player?
No. I actually grew up in South Nashville, Flat Rock as we call it.
Yes.
And I had two older brothers, and one played at Glencliff. At the same time, Walter came through, and Glencliff had great teams back in the 60s, late 60s. And I grew up around Bubba Dudley. That's Tommy Balcom and a lot of the guys that probably should be on the list or maybe be on the other list. But those are the guys I went and watched every Friday night. And it was like we talked about earlier. It was a family. We all went there, and it was the whole community, and we went to Glencliff, and that's what we did. We looked forward to it. But a lot of those guys were kind of my idols that I looked up to.
There was something in the air on Friday night. I mean, when you woke up Friday morning, you knew it was Friday.
No, you did.
Yeah. Is it that way today, Engel?
I think in some spots it is. It's a shame, I think, that it's not like it used to be. But there's a lot that has to do with it. I mean, I've only been coaching 9 years, and we've been in 4 or 5 different districts or regions.
Yeah.
So all the natural rivalries get changed up every 2 or 3, 4 years. Schools are jumping up and down, adding people, subtracting. This is our second year where they've mandated all the private schools have to play with each other, and the public schools play with each other. So we could get into that debate another day. I'm not going to start it today, but there's still a little bit of that feel. I mean, we went over and played Stratford in a playoff game, I guess 2 years ago, and it felt like that. It was a big game. Stratford was really good. Coach Fitzgerald got them back on top, and I think for us, you don't want it to become where you don't appreciate it, and that's what we told our team a couple days ago. Appreciate where you're at. A lot of teams don't get to play in November, but it is there are 9 state champions now.
Yeah.
We did the math. I don't know exactly, but 250 something schools make the playoffs. You've got 1 and 2 loss team or 1 and 2 win teams making it with 8 or 9 losses. That it doesn't mean anything anymore. And then you got people that don't want to play each other because they're going to lose, and then they're going to break up their undefeated record and all that kind of stuff. So, we can start that debate another time. But I definitely think, as a kid, I can remember how big it was going and watching playoff games, and if you made it to the 2nd or 3rd round, what a big deal that was.
It was huge. Yeah. It was absolutely huge. Joe got into this about the intensity of his recruiting process. Ingle did too. With you two guys, how intense was it back then? How much has that changed, or was it very intense back then?
I had Nebraska, Navy, Western Kentucky, UT, and Vanderbilt.
Wow.
And MTSU. And I'll take that back because one of my best friends, Porter Williams, who was an All-American at Western Kentucky, went there. And
Great receiver.
He wanted me to go there. So I wasn't recruited nationwide because that was back in the late 60s.
Yeah.
But I was recruited by Nebraska and UT and all, and it was exciting to be able to go and visit those particular campuses. But I knew I wanted to stay home.
You also wanted to play quarterback, and Vanderbilt told you could play quarterback. Talk a little bit about that. You ended up getting moved to receiver.
Yeah, well, what happened with that was that freshmen were only eligible to play at that particular time, and Watson Brown was the quarterback at that time. And when I came over, Watson had gotten hurt, I think his junior year, and I was a freshman. And we went 3-2. We actually beat UT's freshman team, and so that was a milestone for Vanderbilt to beat UT in anything. So after that season, we went 3-2. In spring practice, the quarterback that had backed me up, when we went to look at the depth chart, he was in front of me. I couldn't figure that out. I couldn't. That was really a shock to me. I said, wait a minute. This guy played behind me.
Yeah.
I played all 5 games, and I was listed second on the depth chart. So I couldn't figure out what's up with that. So a week went by with spring practice, and I moved up to the in the depth chart, second quarterback. Watson wasn't playing that particular spring, and Coach Pace came to me and said, "We want you to move to receiver." He said, we want you to have the ball. And I said, Coach, what better way for me to get the ball and get it from the center every time? If you want me to have the ball, I can get it from the center.
Yeah.
and so he said, oh, but this is just experiment. This is just experiment. You just want to see Watson to be well, and you can, we'll get you the ball. And I said, Coach, I don't want to do that. I wanted to transfer. My mom wouldn't allow me to transfer.
See, Walter, that's what I was afraid of with the UT, with the whole UT thing.
That's exactly right.
Whatever they came at me so hard for corner, and then finally when I, they was like, okay, well, and I was like, nah. See, that's what.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would have walked.
See, the problem with me, I grew up by Vanderbilt, and I grew up, I could stand on my porch and listen to the roar of the crowd.
Right.
So that was entrenched. And I said, wow, could I ever play there?
Right.
And when I had the opportunity,
Of course.
I took it.
Had you ever played receiver at Pearl?
No. I mean, I was an athlete. I knew how to
Yeah,
catch,
yeah.
throw, whatever, but no.
Yeah.
But I managed to, my junior year to be on the second team SEC. So
Yeah.
that was with the team that won 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not bad there. Mike, who
So mine's a little different than Walter's. Mine, and like Eagle said earlier, I played with some guys that were good football players. And I played with some guys that were good baseball players. So mine's a little different.
Yeah.
That I was weighing 2 sports at one time. I was recruited real heavily with football, most of the SEC schools, and outside of that, Oklahoma. Alabama's probably where I narrowed it down to. Tennessee was in the mix. Vanderbilt was in the mix. So I kind of narrowed it down to where I was doing. I knew baseball
Mike's
was
a show
still.
off.
Yeah. I knew baseball was still in the future for me, so my senior year, I kind of committed to go to Vanderbilt. And one reason I did, Larry Smittle was a big part of that. Larry was coaching baseball, and Coach Pankos had just come there, and they were going to let me play 2 sports. And in college, it's kind of hard to do, but I knew that I still didn't know what I wanted to do in my future. And I was fortunate enough that Coach Smith will have a lot. He was also kind of the recruiter for football
yes,
as well.
he was, yeah.
And smart guy as he was, businessman as we all know, he was trying to get people off his scholarship, and they were on football, so it was weighing that he had more scholarships open in baseball. So, it was a big way for me. Alabama didn't want me to play baseball. You come here at Alabama, you're going to be a football player. And so it weighed a lot on the decision I made to go there. Plus playing here, and I'm like Walter, I knew Vanderbilt, been to games, and knew Vanderbilt basketball because I played basketball, had John Sneed and Carl Crane, who had played baseball, was going there. So a lot of us was familiar with Vanderbilt the way it was. That being said, and as soon as my senior year, I got drafted 3rd guy from the Oakland A's. So then I had to weigh the fact, well, where you want to go? Is this really what you want to do? And so I chose to go on to Vanderbilt. It was a great decision. It's been a business decision as well. I mean, I deal with a lot of people around here in the business that I'm in now, and it's just paid off. Been very blessed.
Did you have to tell Bear Bryant no, or was it an assistant coach?
It was Bear Bryant. Coach Donahue was actually the guy who recruited me, was a defensive guy. I got one story I want to tell about the Bear. Everybody's got one, but real quick, they had this deal back when I came through, is that the head coach, like on Thursday night after your short practice, similar to what you do, these coaches would call you. It wasn't texting, wasn't what we have today and all that. And Coach Bryant called me one night and started to talk to me and stuff. And Jeff Rutledge, who coached at NBA, was going the same time I was going. He was a quarterback. And for about 30 minutes, he called me Jeff Rutledge. I said, Coach, wrong guy. This is Mike Wright. They give me the wrong list. And we straightened it out a little bit. I knew where I stood then.
Yeah, but I've heard the stories of where they had to, the players at Alabama had to wear their names on the tape because he never did learn anything. And I'm talking about guys into their junior and senior year because he never did bother to learn their names.
Still good.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up with the last question, and this will play into what you just said, Mike. I know you've been a very successful businessman here in Nashville. I think that your high school playing days may have laid a foundation for that. Walter is a long-time manager of the only manager that has been at Nissan Stadium all the way back to LP Field. Yeah, so
Adelphia
Coliseum, everything.
That's where it started.
Talk about how people still to this day recognize you guys.
I think that still being in newsworthy jobs or being around in the community certainly helped me. Going to Vanderbilt certainly was a plus for me, and being able to, of course, I had told you that I wanted to transfer. My mom wouldn't allow that. She said
she's looking to go down the road.
Oh yeah, she said, you're not going to do that. You made the choice. You stay. And so I did, and graduated, and went to law school, graduated from law school, got my law degree. And I worked in different jobs here in the city. So, I somewhat became still viable, still in the city where I was raised and grew up, and when your name is still thrown around, people still recognize it. So I've been blessed and fortunate to have had that to happen to me.
You mentioned Howard Gentry. When I invited Howard Gentry to be on the selection committee, he said, as long as you make sure that Walter Overton gets on that team. So that's a high-profile guy here in town, right. Howard Gentry Jr.
Right.
So, Mike, just being recognized, being part of, you're still very heavily involved at Vanderbilt, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's Walter. We know you as a white hat now. We don't know you as anything else.
I know.
You're a referee in
right,
sports now, so that's all we know you as.
Right.
But similar to Walter, I think going here helped me. And it's the fact that you're just around the people that you've grown up with, you played against, and it's not necessarily what we did in high school or what I did in the pros or what I did in college. It's like we were talking earlier, I played Little League against these guys,
right.
I played Babe Ruth against these guys, I played basketball against these guys, so it's the fact you play against all these people. There's not a day or a week goes by that I don't run across somebody, hey, I played you in this and this and this. Well, I'm sorry, I don't really remember it,
right.
but I can remember the teams that we played on and we played against each other. So, sports has been very good to all of us, truthfully. Yeah. I know personally myself, I've got 2 daughters who played and 2 great son-in-laws who played, and it's sports is something that's in our family, and we're well blessed to what we got, and our grandkids are going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's what we're striving to do, and I tell you, it's made a better man out of me. There's no telling where I would be today if people like Boots Donnelly didn't shake me around and get me going in the right direction, and he did a lot of that for a lot of us. And,
he's shaking a lot of people.
So the fact that sports means a lot, and it still means a lot in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Ingo, did you have anything that you were going to do other than coach, or was this something you wanted to do all along? And of course,
This has been, this has been something that I don't know that I dreamed of. I think every single one of us dreamed of playing 10 or 15 years of professional sports. I certainly had that dream, and was blessed to have the 3 and 4 years that I had. But when I got done playing, I hadn't reached that pinnacle yet. I didn't have 10 years or 15 years and $10 million sitting in the bank where I could afford to be a high school coach. And, God had different plans. And so for me, football was a blessing. And we talk about it with kids we coach. If you don't hit the genetic lottery, you don't have a chance to play. And so none of us did anything to be real fast or to be able to run the ball like he could and be as strong as he was.
Right.
Now, he worked, and he got the most out of his talent, just like the rest of these guys up here. But we all were blessed for various reasons. And I just firmly believe that we're all blessed to be a blessing to other people. And so for me, that blessing has been being able to go coach now for this is my 9th year, and being able to look at these kids and see them. Yeah, they're high school football players now, but they're the future Walter Overtons and Mike Wright and Joe Campbells of the world and of Nashville, and they're going to be the future leaders and the future people that shape how Nashville moves. And so that I guess keeps me going to know that what we've done, and what we hope to continue to do will hopefully move Nashville in the right direction for the next generation.
Joe and I have been Facebook friends for a long time, and if I ever put a picture of Joe on Facebook, I'm sure to get 100 to 200 likes and just multiple comments. Remains one of the most popular guys in town. It's been a while since you carried a football. Yeah. Did go into coaching, as you mentioned, for a while, but just how cool is it to have high school football in your background?
Oh man, like you said, I tell people when I was coaching high school ball, and then when I talk to kids that play high school ball, I don't know about this other guy's experience, but mine, I tell them it will never be a better time in your life, whether you go to the NFL. And I had a cup of coffee in the NFL, played in Canada, arena football, college ball. There's nothing like the friendships that you have in high school, for me personally.
That's true.
And I look back, I still run with Michael, Ed Williams, Lamont Stone, all those guys. We still hang out, meet one Monday out of the month and have breakfast together. And so, you know, it's nothing like high school ball. And I tell everybody, similar to what Mr. Engel told here, he was like, you know, I tell them to enjoy the moment. You know, be in the moment, enjoy the moment. I said, because at some point, 9 times out of 10, most of you guys won't play past this.
Yeah.
So you need to enjoy these memories. And so it's definitely helped me. And just being, as my brother calls me, the mayor of East Nashville, you know, I knew I didn't tell any of the big schools this. I was never going further than Knoxville or Lexington anyway. So I just enjoyed the recruits. I enjoyed the recruiting trips, got all I could
free
get.
dinners.
And at the end of the day, it was coming down to Tennessee, MTSU, and a long shot Kentucky.
All right, everybody. Well, Walter's got to go over and make sure the grass gets cut over to stadium.
We got a big game Sunday.
We got a game coming up Sunday.
Brady's coming to town.
Yeah, Tom Brady's coming to town, and Walter's got.
Is this a good time to hit Walter up?
It's a perfect time. Anybody that needs tickets on this panel, he's got a bank of them out in his glove box.
I can get you on the cleaning crew. You can get in the
game. Hey, for Brady, I might do that.
Engel's got to go practice and get ready for. Who is it this week?
We got St. George's.
St. George's, yeah. So anyway, this was great getting these guys together. I'd like to do like Joe and get us together every month for breakfast. This would be a great thing. So honored to sit on the same panel with these 3 guys. I never thought I'd be sitting here with these 3 guys. So thanks for everybody for coming down.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Mike.